I find myself in the fortunate position of having several different software emulations of the classic ROLAND JUNO 60 and JUNO-106 synthesizers. So a huge thank you to all of the manufacturers for hooking me up. Now, I think it would be interesting, and I hope you do too, if we do a sound comparison, a shootout, so we can hear how good all of these various emulations sound compared to each other. I could, of course, play the oscillators for you and do some filter sweeps and stuff and show you that on an oscilloscope, and that's a lot of fun, and I enjoy those videos too. But for me, I prefer to do a more musical comparison. So I actually made a track so you can hear how all of these synths sound in the mix in a musical composition, which I think is the most important thing after all. Here then is my little project in Reaper. We have 5 tracks at the top. A drum track that I did in battery from Native Instruments, but then rendered it out or bounced the track to a WAV file, so you don't see the MIDI information there. Then we have a bass track, a lead track, a pad track, and an ARP track. What we will do then is play through this composition 7 times, once for each of the Juno emulations that we're testing. So if I open up the FX here, you can see the instances of the plugin that we have here. Actually, 6 different Juno emulations that I have today. Let me step through them for you. We have TAL-U-NO-LX, which is the oldest, I think the oldest of the VSTs that we're testing today, but still very highly regarded. We have DCO-106, which is, I think, the most recent release from Cherry Audio. I have the Roland Cloud Juno 60. This one is interesting because it uses, I think it's called Roland's ACB circuit modeling. This is the technology used in the Boutique series synths and in their plug-out synths like the System 8. So this is the Juno 60 expansion, widely regarded as being one of the most accurate emulations. And if anybody can do a Juno emulation, it should be Roland, right? This is the Juno 60. We've got a bit of a mixture of Juno 60, Juno 6 and Juno-106 emulations going on here, but I wanted to get all of the Junos, all of the vintage Junos anyway. Then we have the 106. Again, this is their very advanced circuit modeling here, as found on the System 8 and the Boutiques. This, however, is Roland ZENOLOGY. This is the ZENCORE version, which is found on the ZENCORE synths, the hardware synths like the Roland FANTOM, the new Jupiter-X, and the JUNO-X, and the XM for that matter. If we expand it, we can see all the parameters. So here they haven't gone for this skeuomorphic, realistic look of the hardware. They've gone for their completely own design. So this will be interesting for those of you that might be considering the new JUNO-X synthesizer. I do find it confusing, their different modeling technologies and model expansions and what is compatible with what. But you can always go and research that information for yourself. I do have many opinions on all of these synthesizers and some pros and cons of all of the features, but I think we'll save that for a separate video. This today will just be more of a sound demonstration. Finally then, and I think I've got all of the available emulations here in my test, although it did occur to me that perhaps Arturia have something, and unfortunately I don't have a license for that, so we'll have to do a separate demo of that sometime in the future when that's available to me. But finally we have Model 84 from SOFTUBE. I've done some demonstrations of Juno synths before, and people were telling me that I really need to check out this particular one because people regarded this as being the most realistic, even more than the Roland emulations, but we'll find out. I'll play it for you today and you can see which of them you prefer. So there's 4 parts. What I'll be doing today is playing the lead part live, just to keep it interesting as we'll be listening to this track 6 times. I've also got an instance of one knob here, the pumper, just to put a bit of motion to the bass sounds. I also used it on the pad. I can show you what that sounds like. I'll play through all of these different synths just on the bass track, for example. So this was actually a huge task for me, because for each track I needed to fire up 6 instances of the Junos and then match the sound on each one. In this particular one, because I want you to hear how they compare in the sound character, I did make my best effort to match up the sounds, well, as best as I could. So I'll play through the instances here so you can hear. That's with the 1 knob pumper. I can switch it off for now. And it's a much flatter sound. So that's TAL. Then we have DCO 106. Then we have Juno 60. Juno 106. ZENCORE. And the SOFTUBE. Yes, I know they're not exactly correct, but man, you can't imagine how much time this took me to dial this in. And of course, I had to do the same thing for the lead, the pad, and the ARPs. I can quickly play through you the pad sounds as well, perhaps. Yes, I do this for you so that you don't have to. So let's play through the pads again without the pumper right now, which I'll need to solo the correct track. There we go. Let's take a listen. The pads. And I've tried to be a little bit ingenious here in that I'm using different features of the synth on each track. On some tracks I'm using chorus 1, on others I'm using chorus 2, sometimes no chorus at all. On some tracks I'm using the pulse width modulation, different combinations of the oscillators and so on, but I've had to match them up on each synthesizer. So here's the DCO. Let me play you that one again. Here's the Roland. Here's the Juno 106. Here's the ZENOLOGY 106. Here's the SOFTUBE 106. I've also had to mix the levels of these as best as I can as well. I've disabled all of the effects. Some of these have built-in reverb. All of them have the legendary chorus, of course, but where there are additional effects like reverb, I've turned them off and I'm sending everything through a separate reverb track here so that I'm using the same reverb for all of the synths. So what did we learn from all of this then? Well, I think it's probably safe to assume that perhaps one or more of those sounded more realistic and authentic to the original hardware. I don't have my Juno with me at the moment, so I can't do a comparison, and I'm pretty sure that all vintage Junos sound different anyway. Maybe some of these plugins had better sounding chorus, or better sounding oscillators or filters, and so on. That's hard to deny, and you can make up your own mind about that. But for me, the conclusion I reached is that none of that really matters, because all of these sounded excellent in their own right. It doesn't really matter which was the most realistic or which had the best sounding oscillators. I asked them to do a job, and in the mix, they all did that really well and sounded great. So perhaps if you're choosing between one of these, the sound is not the most important thing to think of. They all do a great job, but you also need to consider the features perhaps, how you like the look of the GUI if you have a favorite developer, and of course, the price is a huge consideration as well. I'm sure with a bit more effort I could have even tweaked these to sound even more like each other and more identical, but I didn't really see the point in doing that. But yeah, for me it was quite surprising how similar they sounded once you put them into the context of a mix. Now the moment you've been waiting for, let's play back all of the Junos together in a massive fat layer of Juno goodness. Let's take a listen. I know what you're thinking. Yes, that was a bit underwhelming. I expected it to sound a lot fatter as well. I did double check my settings, and yes, indeed, I had all of the Junos activated on every track, but still it didn't sound all that great, did it? I think maybe they were cancelling each other out or something, but yeah, there you have it. So today's video was just a sound comparison. I would like to do more in-depth demos and reviews of all of these plugins in the future, so stay tuned for that. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later. Cheerio.